Side 2, Xone of Contention, by Piers Anthony. Continuing on page 38. First thing to remember, Brianna said, when in doubt, stay on the path. It's enchanted, so that no harm can come to you on it, and it goes where you want to go. Suppose a person needs to do something private, Pia asked. She wasn't sure how natural functions would be handled if they didn't take occasional breaks from the program. Her real-life body couldn't sit in front of a screen forever, no matter how realistic the effects. There are places along the path, Brianna said. There's one now. She indicated a side path. Want to see? Yes. Actually, it was about time for her afternoon shot. Okay. Brianna led the way down the offshoot, while Justin and Edsel waited on the main path. Behind a barrier of bushes was an outhouse with a crescent moon painted on the door. Pia approached it and tried to open the door, but her hand passed right through the wood. It's illusion, Brianna explained. Just walk through it. Pia tried it. She passed through the wood and found herself in a surprisingly modern bathroom. How much of this was illusion? She felt the toilet seat. Sure enough, it was a mere board with a hole in it, under the illusion. Well, that would do. She took out her kit and pricked her finger, checking her blood level of sugar. Then she prepared a shot. She untucked her blouse and swabbed the fat of her hip. She always injected in the same place, and was almost immune to pain there. The shot took only a moment. Then she tucked herself back together and put away the kit. She should be okay until morning, if she didn't overexert herself. Brianna didn't inquire. She surely thought Pia had been attending to different matters. They returned to the main path where the men stood. A ghost loomed up before them. Boo! It cried. Pia stifled a scream and stepped back, but Brianna was unimpressed. You're practicing your talent, she said. To make solid illusionary creatures, Edsel said. Justin reminded me. We need to get a handle on our talents, so we won't flounder when we need them. The ghost hovered, now properly harmless. Pia concealed her annoyance at being frightened. I thought a ghost wasn't solid. This one is, Edsel said. I can't make a real ghost, but this is a fake ghost. Go ahead, touch it. Brianna reached out and caught hold of the ghost's substance. Sheet, she said. Can you use such language in Xanth? Edsel inquired innocently. Pia was disgusted. Him and his juvenile sense of humor. Justin looked blank, but Brianna almost let half a smile escape. You can when it's a bed sheet. She yanked and the ghost lurched forward. Ooh, it complained. Pia touched the sheet. It was indeed solid. She lifted it up and peeked under. There was nothing. It was just material shaped over air. The sheet dissipated and the ghost was gone. I like it, Edsel said. You should check yours, Brianna told Pia. I thought she just did, Edsel said, with that feigned innocence again. Will you stop that? Did he do something? Justin asked, perplexed. You were a tree too long, dear, Brianna said fondly. Indubitably, but... First he implied that a word I said almost sounded bad, though it wasn't, she explained. Then he made a comment that was similar. I don't understand. Pia realized that the man really had been out of touch too long. He was truly innocent about some things. She liked that. I was suggesting to Pia that she should check her talent, Brianna said to Justin. Edsel pretended that I was suggesting that she check her state of digestion. Digestion? Girls aren't supposed to have digestion. Oh, he remained blank. You have a long row to hoe, Edsel said to Brianna. I'll get there, the girl said. Now about that talent, Pia. They work different ways. Mine is seeing in blackness, so it doesn't apply in daytime. Justin's is voice projection. For a long time he needed it, because didn't have a mouth. Show them, Justin. As you wish, a nearby tree said. Startled, Pia looked at the tree. It had no mouth. Oh, ventriloquism. Not exactly, Brianna said. Watch his mouth.
I am speaking again, the tree said.
Justin's mouth was firmly closed. Pia nodded. That is impressive. But yours should be more useful, Brianna said, because you should be able to see any trouble that's going to happen. But all talents have limits, and it's best to understand them thoroughly. What do you see in the future? Pia concentrated, uncertain how this worked. She closed her eyes. Then she saw a pretty shore with pleasant trees by blue water. It's just a scene, she said, trees and water. Do you see yourself? No, it's as if I'm doing the looking. Okay, there's a limit. You don't see the whole scene, just what your eyes see. What happened before that? Nothing I can see, it's just the scene. Now it's changing. Oh, there's Edsel. What about Justin and me? I don't see either of you, just Edsel. Can you hear anything? No, it's silent.
Justin spoke. This would seem to be purely an ongoing visual talent, perhaps seeing what she will be seeing exactly one day hence. That is indeed limited, but potentially quite useful. Perhaps Brianna and I are walking behind you at the moment. It is encouraging that there is no sign of mischief.
I suppose, Pia agreed. She was somewhat disappointed. She would have preferred a more versatile vision of the future.
Sometimes simple-seeming talents turn out to have important aspects, Justin said. You should continue your exploration. I'm sure NIMBY would not have given you an inferior talent.
For sure, Brianna agreed.
Pia continued to watch, but all she saw was a dull travelogue as she and Edsel walked along the shore. Maybe it would be interesting when they were there, but with the sound turned off, it was like watching a soundless movie. She had done that once on an airplane flight, because she hadn't wanted to get soaked several dollars to rent germ-laden earphones for 2 hours. The movie had distracted, frustrated, and bored her something awful. This felt like that. Perhaps if you attempt to change that future scene, you would ascertain useful information, Justin suggested. He had a vaguely archaic mode of speaking that made him sound much older than he was. Except that he was much older, she remembered. He had taken youth potion. So he was, after all, in sync. But why was young Brianna so taken with the man? How do I change my future? She asked. I should suppose that the mere decision to take a different course would be effective. A person's future is naturally determined by his choices in the present. All right, I'll do something else. Pia concentrated, determined to do something else. But the vision of the future did not change. They pondered that, but none of them could figure out how she could change her future if it refused to be changed. I suspect we shall simply have to wait until we arrive at that point, Justin said. Then perhaps we can estimate how we might have changed it, and what might be effective thereafter. That seemed to cover it. They walked on down the path. We don't have much of an agenda, Brianna said. We thought the first day you'd just want to see the local sights. Then tomorrow, maybe we can visit Castle Rubna. Edsel perked up. I'm not much on the geography of Xanth, but isn't Castle Rubna south of the Gap Chasm? For sure. Corrine arranged for a rockbird to carry us there. It should be a nice trip. That's tomorrow? Pia asked. Is Castle Rubna by the shore? No, it's inland. Then why am I seeing the shore tomorrow? That made the girl pause. Gee, I don't know. Unless maybe we ask the rock to take us to the Isle of View or something. The what? It's an island named View. Very romantic. Prince Dolph and Princess Electra got married there. Brianna smiled. I hear it was quite an event, because neither one of them knew how to signal the stork. But they must have figured it out, because the stork delivered twins. I wonder if there's an Isle of View, too, Edsel mused, his tone indicating that this was supposed to be funny. For the second time around. Pia figured it out. Isle of View, I love you. And I love you, too. Romantic by definition. She didn't want to go there with Edsel. He would get ideas. So she would insist on the original tour, to that castle. She looked at the future again. It hadn't changed. They were still wandering along that stupid shore. "There's a sign," Edsel said, looking ahead. The sign said, "Wrestling, boxing, soccer." An arrow indicated another side path.
"That's probably not,"
Brianna began, but Edsel was already heading down it. "He's like that," Pia said with resignation. "Impulsive to a fault." Brianna shrugged.
"The side path's enchanted, so it should be safe, but these diversions aren't always what you expect."
"This is true," Justin remarked. They followed Edsel down the path. They came to a region where several men, women, and children were lying on the ground. They weren't sleeping, just lying. "You folk okay?" Edsel asked. "Of course," the nearest man said. "We are wrestling." "Wrestling?" "Wrestling. We are finding out who can laze around the longest. The winner gets to do it again tomorrow."
"As we said," Brianna murmured.
But Edsel was already going on to the next. This turned out to be a group of people making boxes as quickly as they could. Boxing. "Have you seen enough?" Pia asked in a moderately withering way. "The soccer should be better," he said, moving on. It wasn't. People were hurling stinking used socks at each other. The winner was evidently the one who could overcome the others with the intoxicating fumes. Several people were gasping on the ground, and others had purple faces. "Go ahead. Get in the contest, Ed," Pia suggested sweetly. "You could win hands down, or maybe feet down." He shot her a dark look. "You shouldn't try humor. It's not your forte." But both Brianna and Justin seemed to be possessed of aspects of a smile. They returned to the main path. There at the juncture was a female form so luscious it seemed like a crime. Edsel's gaze was immediately locked, and so was Justin's. Pia exchanged a glance of annoyance with Brianna. Men were so superficial. "Hi," Edsel said, approaching the figure. "Lo," the figure responded in a sultry manner. That was all there was. It was swathed in a toga-like wrapping of scintillating cloth, so that only the hourglass outline could be made out. "What can I do for you?" Edsel asked eagerly. He was such a fool about women. The figure began unwinding the cloth. Soon the face would be exposed. "I thought I might ask one tiny little favor."
"We're not looking to do favors," Brianna said. "We're a special party touring Xanth, so if it's all the same to you."
"By no means," the figure said in dulcet tones. "It is very miscellaneous for me." "It is what?" Edsel asked. "Unlike, altered, contrary, deviant." "Different?" "Whatever," she agreed crossly. "The demoness Mitria," Justin exclaimed. "I have heard of you. The demoness with a speech impediment." The opening hood turned to him. "You have an obstruction with that?" "A what?"
"Problem," Brianna snapped. "No, we don't have a problem with that. But we're not in the business of favors."
"Fortunately, I wasn't asking you," Mitria said, exposing her lovely face. "I was asking these handsome gentlemen." "Anything," Edsel breathed raptly.
"Not anything," Brianna said. "We have other business."
Pia wondered why the girl was being so negative. The striptease was annoying, but didn't seem to warrant such emphatic denial. The demoness unwrapped some more. Her sculptured, slender neck came into view, and the first divine upper swell of her gently heaving bosom. "I thought if you were touring Xanth anyway, you could take along my darling Ted." "Ted?" Edsel asked foolishly, his mind evidently on that swell rather than her words. "My baby. You have no idea what I went through to get him delivered. But now Demon Ted is 3 and wants to explore Xanth." Her rose-petal mouth quirked. "Without his cadaver." "His what?" She unwound some more. "Corpse, carcass, deceased, embalmed, bandaged. Mummy," Pia said before thinking. "His mummy." "Whatever," the demoness agreed crossly. She unwound some more, bearing an unbelievable bosom barely covered by a translucent halter, and proceeding down to a waist that was 3 sizes smaller than impossible. "Sure, anything," Etzel agreed, his eyes spiraling down in concert with the unraveling winding. Acquiescence, Justin agreed.
We're in for it now,
Brianna muttered darkly. And of course his inseparable friend of the same age, Demonica, Mitria continued as the winding bared her expanding hips. Why not? Etzel said. What's wrong with 3-year-olds? Pia asked Brianna. Not that I care.
They're half demon, Brianna said tersely. Ted has a human father and a demoness mother, while Monica has a demon father and a human mother. They're cute, but worse than any human children can be.
Well, let the menfolk take care of them. They're the ones who are slavering.
You ever see worse incompetence than a man with a baby?
Point made. The job will fall to us.
For sure.
Meanwhile, Mitria was winding down to her splendid thighs. That creature could irk me if she made the effort, Pia remarked.
And she's not even trying.
So you folk will keep good eyes on them and not let them get into any mischief? The demoness asked, as her long, symmetrical legs appeared. Their juncture was covered by another trifle of haze. Yeah, Etzel agreed. Pia wasn't sure, but it almost seemed that his eyeballs were smoking. Excellent! Mitria stepped out of the last winding. Just for that, I'll show you my...
Don't show them your panties,
Brianna cried. The demoness paused. Why not? Aren't they of age? They will earn the glimpse.
Because it will freak them out and they won't be able to do the job.
Mitria considered. You do have a prong. Of what? Pia asked, again before she thought. Pin, spur, tine, spike, point, whatever. So I'll just leave the little darlings. The demoness gathered up the strewn winding, dissolved into smoke, and separated into 2 blobs. The blobs dropped to the ground, dissipated, and revealed 2 children. I'm Ted, the boy said. He wore a little frilly pink dress with matching feminine sandals. His blonde hair was tied with a red ribbon.
I'm Monica,
the girl said. She wore blue shorts and matching sneakers. She had large brown eyes, a turned-up nose, and short brown hair. But they were indeed cute. Haven't you gotten something confused? Pia asked them. The children looked at each other. Then they laughed together, and their clothing started to change. Soon he wore the shorts, and she wore the dress. Her hair also lengthened to support the red ribbon, while his shortened. Etzel came out of his haze. What happened? He asked.
The demoness smoked your eyeballs, Brianna said. Now we have a chore.
Oh, yeah, he agreed vaguely.
Let's explore,
Ted cried, dashing off. Monica followed.
Stay on the path,
Brianna called after them. Monica paused, looking back.
Why? Because you're half human. If a dragon chomps you, you'll feel it. A dragon can't get you on the enchanted path.
The child made a cute moo.
Okay.
At least they will listen to reason, Pia said.
For the moment. We'll have to watch closely, though.
The girl glanced at Pia.
Sorry about this. I tried to stop it,
But the men were idiots, Pia said. She liked Brianna better as she got to know her. She was just trying to do her job. They followed the children.
Hey, there's a bee,
Ted said, pointing.
It's a rate,
Monica agreed. What are they talking about? Pia asked. The bees make the people they sting emotional, Justin explained. A bee rate would make a person scold others. Pia grimaced. Sorry I asked.
There's a joystick,
Ted said, pointing to a little column beside the path.
No, it's a sad stick,
Monica said. Indeed, the stick did look droopy. They rushed on, losing interest, while the human party tried to keep up. Where are we going? Pia asked Brianna.
We thought you'd like to see some of the routine sights of Xanth, like a tangle tree, a dragon, a centaur, sort of starting out easy.
That will do, Pia agreed. Aren't some of those dangerous?
Not as long as we stay on the enchanted path.
Suppose those little demons run off it.
That's one reason I didn't want them along. But probably they'll stay close. Otherwise Mitria wouldn't have left them. She does care. She has half a soul.
Half a soul?
Demons don't have souls because they are souls, Brianna explained. When you use your soul as a body, it gets degraded, and you lose its finer aspects. So they don't have much conscience, and they can't really love. But Nitria got a taste of what soul life was like, and got a hankering, and finally married a mortal man and got half his soul. It's sort of a convention. A demon who marries a mortal can have the better half. Then she has a conscience and can love, in a half-donkeyed way.
But what of the man? Can he get along with only half a soul?
Oh, sure. It regenerates in mortals. Not right away. I think it takes several months. But in time, it will be whole again. It doesn't regenerate in demons, but for one of them, half a functioning soul is infinitely more than what they're used to. So they don't miss the rest.
What about the little demons?
They're half human, so I think they have whole souls.
The girl paused.
Though I've heard of a demoness losing her soul when she has a mortal child. The baby gets it. So I guess I'm not sure. Maybe the offspring have quarter souls.
Pia was curious. Maybe we can find out. We can ask the children.
Yeah.
Brianna put 2 fingers to her mouth and whistled. The children paused in their running.
We didn't do anything, Ted protested guiltily. For sure. I just want to ask you something.
They came back, somewhat warily.
Real people aren't supposed to lie, Monica said. I'm not lying, Brianna said, but it seems that you've been into some mischief I should ask you about also.
Oh, no, Ted said. Only one question.
The first one,
Monica agreed.
I'll ask the second one,
Pia said. She had never thought of having children herself, but was becoming intrigued.
Aw,
they said together.
You are both half demons, Brianna said. How much of a soul do you have?
Which one? Ted asked.
There's a difference? For sure, Monica said, mimicking Brianna. Okay, how much does Ted have? A quarter soul, the child responded. Half of Mummy's. And how much does Monica have? A half soul, half of Mother's.
Brianna pondered, then brightened.
I get it. You're each half human, but Ted has a human father and Monica has a human mother. So Ted shared a half soul and Monica shared a whole soul. Naganaga's soul must have regenerated after she gave half to Vor, before the stork arrived.
Vor? Pia asked.
My daddy's Prince Demon Vor, Monica said proudly. Devor, Brianna murmured. He has a notorious appetite. So Monica has twice the conscience Ted does, Pia said.
The little girl scuffled her feet.
I can't help it, you know. You sure can't, Brianna agreed. Give me a hug, you darling creature. Okay.
Monica hugged her. Pia felt an unfamiliar twinge of envy. Not for the hug, so much as the joy Brianna evidently took in it. She evidently liked children. Ugh, Ted said, looking disgusted. Now it's my turn, Pia said. What mischief is making you two feel guilty? Ted turned to Monica.
See, you gave it away.
Monica tried to resist, but it was evident that her extra burden of conscience was too much.
We found something, she said reluctantly.
What? Pia asked.
Nothing important,
Ted said. Pia looked at Monica.
But fun, the girl said. That could be anything from a stinkhorn to a basilisk, Brianna muttered.
What's a stinkhorn? Pia asked.
I'll get one, Ted cried and dashed off. You don't want it, Brianna said. Find out what they found.
What is it? Pia asked Monica. The girl slowly extended one hand. In it was a small glistening object.
Beware,
Brianna murmured. It could be something disgusting, like a slime ball. What is it? Pia repeated, realizing that the warning was serious. She knew that regular children could have fun with bugs and goop, and these were half-demon children. Surely worse.
A rocket?
Monica said grudgingly.
Let me check it,
Pia said. The child handed it over. Pia inspected it. It was very light, only 1/2 inch in diameter, on a silvery chain. She put her fingernail to the snap fastening.
Caution, Brianna said.
Yes. Is there something bad inside? Pia asked the child. Monica scuffled again, trying to resist her conscience.
No.
Pia opened it. Indeed, it was empty. So what's so special about it? The fight against conscience intensified. The child seemed ready to cry.
Maybe some compromise, Brianna said. Dear, why don't you want to tell us? Because you'll take it and we won't have it.
But it's not dangerous to you or us?
Not,
the girl agreed.
Suppose we make you a deal. Tell us about it and you can keep it. Okay,
Monica agreed gladly, holding out her hand. Pia gave her the locket.
It's magic, Monica said. It holds all of anything.
But it's tiny, Pia protested.
I'll show you.
The child grabbed a handful of dirt and poured it into the open locket. The dirt went in and disappeared. She picked up a stone that was triple the locket's diameter and crammed it in, and it fitted. How do you get the things out again if they have disappeared inside it? Pia asked.
You just wish them out,
the child explained.
And you can wish them in, too. So what you have already doesn't fall out when you want to add something. You don't have to open it.
Ted dashed back. Here's the stink horn, he called, holding out a horn-like object. There was a terrible smell, like a festering zombie whale with ballooning indigestion. But Brianna saved the day. She grabbed the horn and shoved it into the locket. Then Monica flipped the lid shut. The smell dissipated. "Aw," Ted said, disappointed.
But we'll have the stink horn for when we need it,
Monica told him. He brightened. Yeah.
But keep the locket closed after this, Brianna said. We don't want that horn falling into someone's soup.
Both children went into titillations of mirth. They loved the idea of such an accident.
I hope we don't regret this deal, Brianna said. But that locket is the kind of thing children can really have fun with.
It doesn't seem to weigh any more than it does empty.
It doesn't, Monica agreed. 'Cause it's magic. I told you.
She dashed off with Ted, intent on finding more choice items to collect. The adults resumed their walk. Edsel and Justin were waiting nearby, having their own dialogue.
Look, maybe it's not my business, Brianna said, pausing artfully.
Go ahead and ask, Pia said.
I heard from Edsel that you two are married, but when you...
I said we are associates, Pia agreed, because our marriage is rocky, and we want to get the feel of separation, in case we want to divorce.
Divorce? I haven't heard that word since I left Mundania. It doesn't happen in Xanth.
Oh? What do couples do when they don't get along?
But they do get along. I think there's magic. When I marry Justin, it will be forever and ever until we fade out.
How can you be sure of that? I understand he's somewhat older than you. Maybe his interests are different.
He's about 83 years older than me, Brianna agreed. He's from another time, and he knows all about trees and everything else I never heard of. And he's diffident to the point of aggravation. But I love him. That's all that counts.
That's not all that counts. Then realizing that this sounded argumentative, she added, in Mundania.
Maybe that's the problem, in Mundania. If you lived in Xanth, you'd never break up.
Even when the love is gone?
It doesn't go. It doesn't matter how different you are. Once you love, you stay that way. If you're married.
I find this hard to believe. No offense.
Well, you're mundane. No offense.
Pia laughed. Brianna's attitude was refreshing. She wasn't looking for a quarrel, but she simply didn't take any guff from anyone. I am mundane, she agreed, and I don't think Edsel and I are going to make it. We made a deal. We visit Xanth, and if that doesn't change our minds, then we divorce. But I want to feel what it would be like to be single, so we won't be acting married while we're here. I want us just to be associates, and we can date others if we want. Brianna shook her head.
That's weird. I can't imagine wanting to be with anyone but Justin. My only problem is I can't make it with him already.
You can't?
Technically, I'm under the age of consent, so I'm not supposed to know what's in the adult conspiracy. But I came from Mundania, and I already knew that stuff before I came to Xanth, so I don't think it should apply.
You're 16, Pia said. That's old enough.
That's what I figure, but Justin is of the old school.
Pia considered. You love him, and he loves you?
He does. You can love at any age, or love someone any age. You just can't do much about it in Xanth if you're the wrong age.
I appreciate your frustration, but you know, I was 15 when I got together with Edsel, and we did plenty about it then. But now, the wonder is gone. I think we went too fast, too young.
You mean you're siding with the conspiracy?
I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but it does occur to me that there might be some reason for it, in some cases. The girl pondered a moment.
When you were 15, if you had honored the conspiracy, would you be happy with him now?
Good question. I suspect things would be much the same, assuming we were married.
So what would you have gained honoring the conspiracy?
It was Pia's turn to ponder. Nothing, she concluded, and lost a lot of early fun.
So what do you figure I should do?
Take him.
I can't. All he does is kiss.
Face to face?
What else?
To use archaic terms, you're necking. You need to get into petting.
Petting?
Necking is above the neck. Petting is below.
I know that, but I can't get into it because
I'll bet the adult conspiracy offers a bit of leeway in the in-between age. Why don't you try it and see?
But what exactly... If he won't...
Pia realized that for all her professed knowledge, the girl had been stifled in Xanth and lacked actual experience. She had the concept without the practical mechanics. Don't ask him, silly. Just do it.
Do it?
Get him alone. Maybe tonight. Take off your shirt. Hold his hand.
Hold his hand?
Like so. Pia glanced around to make sure they were unobserved, then took Brianna's hand and put it against Pia's clothed breast.
Oh-ho!
Brianna smiled with wild surmise. I guarantee he won't ignore you. See how far the conspiracy will bend. I think you will at least make some progress.
For sure,
Brianna breathed raptly. Pia felt good, too. It was nice being reminded of the joys of early discovery. They came to the first of the planned tour exhibits, a tangle tree. From a distance, the thing looked like a drooping live oak, but closer in, she saw that it actually had long, hanging green tentacles. You don't want to get close to such a tree, Justin said. But there's a nice little path leading right to it, Pia said. Yes, but observe. Justin picked up a small fallen branch and threw it at the tree. The tentacles came to life. They caught the branch, wrapping around it and snapping it in two. Then they carried the pieces down to the trunk, where a huge wooden orifice opened. It chomped on a branch, then spat it out, evidently disgusted. The two children chortled together, loving its frustration. Trees don't like to eat trees, Justin said. They regard it as cannibalism. I speak from experience. You were a tangle tree? Pia asked, horrified. No, merely an ordinary tree, he said. Sunlight and soil sufficed. Until I met Brianna. But the birds and the bees kept me informed of the appetites of other tree species.
I don't think the birds and the bees informed you enough about flesh folk,
Brianna said. Justin looked uneasy. Perhaps in 2 years.
Yeah.
But the girl was plainly nettled. Pia could see that she had a legitimate complaint. 2 years was an eternity to that age. They resumed their walk along the path. Next we shall pass a dragon's lair, Justin said. Don't step out of the enchanted section. Why should we want to? Edsel asked. The dragon's smart. It will try to fool you. Edsel shrugged, figuring he was foolproof. That was part of what nettled Pia about him. When they reached the lair, the dragon charged out, snorting fire and smoke. Pia stepped back, but Brianna caught her elbow.
Don't cross the line, even on the far side. It will hurdle that path and come after you. But the fire can't touch you on the path.
Now she saw that there was no smoke crossing the path. It flattened out as if up against an invisible barrier and wafted over the top well above head height. This was truly a protected section. Meanwhile, the two children were making faces at the dragon. Realizing that no one was going to step out of the safe section, the dragon snorted one last blast and retreated into its lair, as disgusted as the tangle tree had been.
I am beginning to appreciate the enchanted path, Pia said. Folk who know the dangers can go where they want, Brianna said, but visitors are restricted for their own safety.
The day was getting late. Perhaps we should camp and visit the centaurs tomorrow, Justin suggested. There is a suitable spot nearby. They went to it. It was a park-like section, marked by a colored line, so that no one would accidentally step out of the safe area.
This is beautiful, Pia said.
She hated to admit it, but this land of Xanth was beginning to get to her. It was more interesting than Mundania, and it seemed quite real. Her body felt better than it had, as if she had taken a pill to invigorate her, rather than just a shot. She had had some doubt that she had actually changed bodies with chlorine, but was becoming reassured. Yes, we try to keep the facilities pristine, Justin said. We want all travelers to be both safe and satisfied. He paused. Will the two of you be sharing a nest?
Nest?
Pia asked, confused. Justin gestured. There was a large, plush nest nestled in the triple fork of a spreading tree. A rock bird helped. You may be sure it is secure.
But we are expected to sleep in a nest?
She asked, more amazed than dismayed. Justin looked perplexed. There is a problem?
Oh, that's right. I remember now, Brianna said. They use beds in Mundania. I didn't think of that. But it's very comfortable, and there's a canopy if you want privacy. Let me show you. Come on in.
She climbed up a vine ladder and disappeared into the nest. Pia shrugged and followed. The ladder was flexible but firm. She was conscious of the two men standing below as she reached head height, but she knew she had pretty good legs, so didn't worry about it. When she got to the rim of the nest, she heaved herself over, lost her grip, and tumbled into the center of the nest.
Fun, no?
Brianna asked. She was sitting on the far slope of the depression.
You can even bounce.
She demonstrated, and in a moment was bouncing high, as if on a trampoline.
Of course, you don't want to do that when there's a man watching. Might show your panties.
What's this business about panties? Pia asked. You told that demoness not to show them, and she listened.
They fry men's eyeballs, the girl explained. They freak out and can't do anything until the sight goes away.
That's interesting.
Your tone makes it sound like that's a load of dragon manure.
Exactly.
Men don't freak out at such sights. Not in Mundania.
You mean they really do? Brianna smiled.
I shouldn't, but I'm a rebellious teen, so I'll show you. Watch this.
The girl climbed up the curving side of the nest and stood on the wide rim.
Hey, boys, look at this, she called.
Then she turned, bent over, and hoisted her skirt, showing her black panties. She was mooning them. There was no sound. Curious, Pia climbed the nest and peered over the rim. Justin and Edsel were standing below, motionless, eyes bulging, jaws slack. They were, indeed, freaked out. The two children were giggling.
That's showing 'em, black-waved girl,
Ted cried naughtily.
Black is the color of my true loves.
The girl jammed a hand over his mouth before he could say a naughty word.
Wait till we get older and I'll be able to do that,
Monica said, seeming slightly jealous.
And I'll be able to freak out,
Ted agreed. Brianna did a forward roll into the nest. That took her panties out of sight. The two men returned to life. Justin stepped back, as if catching his balance. Edsel sat down on the ground. Both looked dazed. Their eyes did seem to be somewhat hot. You boys okay? Pia called. I guess, Edsel said. What happened? You freaked out. Freaked out? I don't remember anything. Both children chortled. Then Justin caught on. Someone must have exposed her underclothing. Not me, Pia said innocently. Go on about your business. She turned back to the interior of the nest.
For the canopy, just pull the cord, Brianna said.
She reached up, caught a dangling vine, and pulled. A neat canopy of living branches and leaves descended, making contact with the rim. This was now a shrouded round chamber.
Good when it rains, too.
I believe this nest will do, Pia said. Are there any sheets or blankets?
You harvest them fresh from a blanket bush. I'll show you.
Brianna scrambled back up the slope toward the ladder. How is it that men are freaked out by panties when it doesn't happen in Mundania? Pia asked as she followed.
It's part of the magic. There are lots of routine magical effects. You get used to them.
What happens if a man sees a woman naked?
Nothing special. Oh, he's interested for sure, but he doesn't freak out. I mean, nymphs go naked all the time, and nobody thinks anything of it. It's just certain items of clothing that make the difference.
They climbed down the ladder and touched the ground. Is this logical? Pia inquired.
What's logic got to do with sex or magic?
That answered itself. I don't believe you expressed a preference, Justin said as they passed him. Will the two of you be sharing a nest? What the bleep? Might as well, she said, then realized that her bad word had been censored out, even in her thoughts, because she was in the presence of someone below the correct age. Magic was everywhere. They came to the blanket bush, where they harvested 2 nice blankets. There was a swirl of smoke. It formed into a handsome male figure. A greeting, lovely ladies, he said, bowing gallantly.
Oh, hi, Vor, Brianna said.
Then to Pia.
This is D. Vor, Monica's father. He must be here to pick up the children.
Indeed. Mitria brought them. I will return them. We are obliged to be somewhat responsible now that we are half sold. He looked at Pia. Have I made your acquaintance, luscious creature?
She's Pia Mundane, Brianna said. I mean Putz. Does Nada know you're flirting with visitors?
I'm not flirting, Thor said quickly. I'm eating. Eating? Pia asked. Devouring her with my eyes, he explained. That was a pun, Pia realized. Devore, devour. The children are fine, she said. They're around here somewhere.
They have a magic locket, Brianna added.
I will investigate. He vanished. Those children really weren't much trouble, Pia said.
We were lucky this time. Things could have complicated in a hurry.
They dumped the blankets in 2 nests. Meanwhile, Vor had taken away the children, and Justin and Etzel had harvested 4 pies from a pie tree. They sat down on large toadstools by a glassy table. Don't tell me, let me guess, Pia said, observing the way the table shimmered. It's a water table.
Of course, Brianna agreed. And here's some milk.
She set down several milkweed pods. Sure enough, the pies were good, and the pods contained fresh milk. Brianna had chocolate milk.
I wouldn't want my color to fade, she explained.
That reminded Pia of something awkward. I gather there isn't racism in Xanth.
Not as such, but there's prejudice. For example, nobody much wants to associate with zombies.
I should think not, Pia agreed.
But they should. Zombies are people too, and they serve Xanth well. If you're ever in trouble and you see a zombie, ask it for help. They're kind-hearted. Their hearts are rotten, of course, but soft.
Pia wasn't certain whether the girl was joking, so she played it low-key. Rotten but kind, she agreed.
Justin and I will be taking over Castle Zombie when the Zombie Master retires, Brianna said. Justin's going to be great.
Brianna is already great, Justin said gallantly.
You don't know the half of it,
Brianna murmured. He looked at her. I don't understand.
You will. We're sharing a nest and a blanket tonight.
We are? I'm not sure that's appropriate, considering you're...
My age? Would you want me to huddle all by myself alone in the great wilderness of Xanth?
Of course not, but...
Good. So finish eating, and we'll turn in.
Justin looked nervous. I suppose if we sleep on opposite sides of the nest. Pia kept her mouth shut. It was fun observing the interaction. Justin seemed like a very nice man, but Brianna was right. He had archaic notions. They finished their meal as dusk closed. Then they went to their nests. You know, poor Justin really likes that girl, Etzel said as they settled down. He told me that it's all he can do to keep his hands off her. But she's too young, so he stays clear.
16 is old enough.
I know that. You know that. But he doesn't know that. He thinks a girl's not a woman until she's 18.
It's the adult conspiracy. But I don't think it's quite tight. I told her how to try to bend it.
Bend it?
As in the distinction between necking and petting. I'm betting that petting's allowed at her age.
Maybe so. Speaking of which, how about...
Forget it. We're estranged.
Not until we finish in Xanth, and you don't change your mind. Anyway, we've always fought, but gotten along great at night. He had a point. Still, she wasn't sure.
Sorry, I don't feel like it.
He lay back, disappointed. Etzel had his faults, but he was a gentleman about sex. There was silence. Then Justin's amazed voice carried across the nests. Brianna, what are you doing?
Just holding hands, dear.
Brianna! He sounded shocked. You...
Shut up and kiss me, handsome. Or shall I hold both your hands? Like this?
After that, the sounds muffled out. Pia turned toward Etzel.
Now I feel like it.
He moved over immediately. Exactly what did you tell her? He whispered.
Just how to hold hands.
That's all?
Like this.
She demonstrated with his hand. He's done for, he agreed appreciatively. This is just like the old days.
For sure,
she agreed, imitating Brianna.
But remember, we're still officially estranged.
Tomorrow, he agreed. 3. Mundania. Chlorine was nervous about this particular adventure because it was the first one where Nimby, the demon Xanth, would not have his immense power of magic. But he wanted to explore Mundania, and this was the only feasible way. Because each demon was jealous of its territory and prerogatives, and had virtually absolute power within its domain. The intrusion of any other demon would not be welcome. So Xanth was sneaking in to look around, and if D-Earth caught on, there would be awful mischief. Chlorine had begged Nimby not to do it, but he had insisted, so now she would do her utmost to facilitate the visit and keep them both safe. Because she owed everything to Nimby, and his will was ultimately her will. They walked to the exit door and paused.
See you here tomorrow for check-in,
Brianna called cheerily. Got it, the mundane woman Kim called back. Then they turned forward and walked down the hall to the ozone interface exit. They passed through that, and Chlorine found herself sitting on a chair with her hands on a funny kind of board with a number of marked little squares, staring at a screen resembling computers. Her hands looked wrong, until she reminded herself that she was no longer in her own body. She was now a mundane, among mundanes. She hoped she survived the experience. Words appeared on it. Pia, stay where you are. Doug and I will be there soon. Kim. But Pia was in Xanth. Then Chlorine reoriented. Of course, she was in Pia's body now, and was to be called Pia, to protect her real identity. And Nimby would be called Etzel, because the demon Earth surely kept an eye on the great global grid, and would soon know if Nimby and Chlorine appeared on it. They were here anonymously. But Nimby was in another room, and she had to be sure he was all right. She got up and found her way out the open door to the adjacent chamber. There was Etzel, sitting somewhat blankly before his own screen.
Nimby, she murmured, it's Chlorine.
He turned to look at her, nodding. He almost never spoke to others. He could speak, and elegantly, but this required him to focus on minutiae, and he preferred not to bother. That was why she had to speak a lot, for both of them. but that was all right. It made her feel important. "Nimby, remember, we have to be anonymous here in Mundania, so we must answer to the bodies we are in. You are Etzel, and I am Pia. Our companions arrived in another house and will join us soon, all right?" He nodded. She found it half a smidgen weird to be calling this stranger Nimby, but no weirder that it had been to see him change from dragon to man form the first time. She sat in his lap and kissed him. "I love you, Nimby, but from now on I will call you Ed or Edsel, until we are back in Xanth. And I won't mention Xanth, because that might give us away. We are Ed and Pia outside, but inside we are ourselves." He knew all of this, of course, but it helped her to express it, making sure there was no misunderstanding. They looked around the room, noting the distinctly mundane look of it. Then they explored the house. There was a staircase leading to a second floor, with 2 rooms with beds, and one small room with odd ceramic or metallic objects that roughly resembled basins or a chair. There was a muted rumble outside, and a funny box on wheels rolled up. They saw it out a window. Then doors in it opened, and Doug and Kim got out on opposite sides. Oh. In a moment and a half, Doug and Kim were with them. "Okay," Kim said. "You are Nimby and Chlorine, right?" "Yes," Chlorine said, "but we will answer to Etzel and Pia." "Yes, of course." Kim paused, as if organizing her thoughts. "There are some things we need to get straight at the outset, so we don't get into mischief. For example, both of you can speak and understand our language, right?" "Yes." "Good, because usually Xanthians can't understand Mundanian right away. But you're actually using mundane bodies, so they must provide you with the language. But how much else do they provide you with? I mean, do you know where everything is?" "We found the bedrooms," Chlorine said, "but there's one room with odd objects." "I think you mean the bathroom. You're going to have to get better acquainted with that, and the kitchen." Kim paused. "Maybe I'd better take you in, and then Doug can take Nimby in. Only, as you said, we'd better not call him that because—" "Yes, call us Pia and Etzel. We understand." She knew why Kim was hesitant, despite the prior reassurance. She knew Nimby's nature and didn't want to insult him. "Right. Okay, Pia, come with me." Kim led the way upstairs. They re-entered the bathroom and Kim closed the door. "Now this is the sink. You wash your hands here, or a pair of socks or whatever. Same as in Xanth. Turn this tap for cold water and this one for hot." She demonstrated. Sure enough, soon cold water was streaming from one nozzle and hot water from the other. "I thought you didn't have magic in Mundania," Chlorine said, impressed. "We don't, but we have technology. Sometimes it's almost as good. In Xanth, you just use spells to heat the water. Here we use electricity." Kim went to the big metallic depression. "This is the bathtub. Its taps work the same way. You run the water first and mix it so you don't burn or freeze. I'll help you set it up the first time." "But why bother?" "Because you can't use a self-cleaning spell in Mundania. You have to take a bath or shower or equivalent." "Thank you." Chlorine understood the principle of a bath, though she preferred to swim in a magic cleansing pool. "This is the tough one," Kim said, going to the funny ceramic object that looked vaguely like a chair. She lifted the wooden seat, and lo, there was a basin below, half filled with clear water. "This is the toilet. It's like the hole of an outhouse. You sit on it and urinate or defecate." "Into clean water?" Chlorine asked, horrified. "Mundania is barbaric in some respects," Kim said, smiling. "No illusion to cover the sight or smell. Then, when you are done, you turn this handle." She turned it. Water surged into the basin and swirled around, then sucked down and disappeared. Then slowly, more water came, until the bowl was half full again. "What happens to the water?" Chlorine asked, repelled. "It flows along a pipe underground into the sewer. This is a kind of subterranean river that carries wastes away. No need to be concerned about it. Just make sure to use only this for this purpose." They returned downstairs, and Doug took Nimby up for a similar demonstration. Chlorine feared he would be appalled, for normally he simply banished all wastes magically, or transformed them into toads. But he had wanted to find out what Mundania was like. This was part of it. Then Kim took the next step. "Are you hungry? I must explain that there are no pie trees here. Food is more complicated to obtain." Chlorine decided not to struggle with that learning process just yet. Edsel would like to see Mundania, the rest of it. "We can show you, but I think it's best to start simple. There may be pitfalls, just as there are in Xanth." Kim paused. "Outside, I'll just say the other place. You understand?" "Yes." "We'll take you window shopping at the mall and maybe see a movie. I think that will be enough outside experience for today." "We must purchase windows at a mill?" Kim laughed. "Not exactly. I mean, we'll just mostly look at things. And it's not a mill. A mall is a big enclosed shopping center. You'll see." They went out to the box on wheels. Doug and Nimby climbed into the front of it, and Kim and Chlorine into the back. There were surprisingly comfortable couches, and they could see out windows all around. The box came to life with a rumble and a quiver. Cool air washed through. Then it rolled backward onto the paved road, paused, and rolled rapidly forward. "This is a car," Kim explained. "Our second-hand Neptune station wagon, just about the safest car we can afford. It carries us where we want to go. No, it's not magic. It's an application of science. But we like it." Chlorine stared out in wonder. All around them, other cars, small and large, were rolling similarly along the road. Most of the ones in the near side were going in one direction, while most of them on the other side were going the other direction. Every so often most of them stopped and sat still, for no apparent reason. Then they started again. It was almost beyond understanding. They came to a plain where many of the boxes sat. They found a spot and sat also. They got out, leaving the car behind. "But won't it wander away?" Chlorine asked. "No, it's a machine, and here in Mundania machines do only what they are told. It will wait here for us." Kim patted the Neptune on the nose. "It wouldn't want to leave us anyway. We get along well." They walked into an unbelievably big building. Inside was a wide hall and a big garden and fountain. Even Nimby was surprised. "Your gardens are inside, while your hard floors are outside?" Kim smiled. "Sometimes. This is the mall. It's closed in so people can shop at the stores without getting rained on." They walked along the hallway, whose sides were filled with doors and big windows. In each window was a display of things. They looked. This was window shopping, it turned out. Looking without taking. The first window had shoes. "But why don't they leave them on the shoe trees until someone needs them?" Chlorine asked. "There are no shoe trees here. Not the type you know. Shoes have to be made, just as pies have to be baked, and pillows sewn and stuffed, and just about everything else." "Mundania is stranger than we suspected," Chlorine murmured. They came to a window with pictures of cold confection. "Ice cream," Chlorine said. "Ice cream," Kim agreed. "Would you like some?" Now she was hungry enough. "Yes." They went into the store, and Kim asked the man for 4 cones. These came with colored balls of ice cream set in the tops. Kim gave the man a greenish piece of paper, and he gave her a few small coins. Oh, money. It had been mentioned somewhere along the way. The ice cream was good. Chlorine made a mental note to come here for more next time they got hungry. But she would have to see about the money, because she didn't understand the numbers and pictures on it. They came to another type of opening. This one had a line of people passing a booth and giving money to a girl locked in the booth. "She is under an enchantment?" Chlorine asked. "Doomed to stay there until a witch lets her out, or a handsome dragon prince rescues her?" "Not exactly. This is a theater. This is where they show movies." "They show moves? Like dancing?" Doug laughed. "I think we'd better let them see the movie. This one is a returning classic. stony, scary painting tale. I'd love to see it again. We're just in time to catch the matinee.
But you've seen it 10 times already, Kim protested.
So this will be the 11th. It gets better with each repetition.
It moves better with practice? Chlorine asked.
In its fashion, Doug agreed. He walked to the girl in the booth and gave her money, and she gave him 4 little pieces of paper. Then the 4 of them walked into the theater. A young man took Doug's 4 papers, tore them in half, and gave him back 4 halves. Chlorine took it on faith that this wanton destruction of what had been pretty papers made sense on some mundane level. Inside there were hundreds of seats jammed together, about half of them empty. They found 4 together in the center and sat facing a huge white screen.
Pictures will appear on that, Kim said. Sound will come from all around. We will watch and listen and think about how it would be for us to be those people. That's how we get into the story. And remember, it is a story. It's not happening, and it never really happened. But we can pretend.
A story, Chlorine said, not sure she understood. A play, Doug said, done by illusion. That made it comprehensible. The curse fiends did plays, and illusion was common in Xanth. Then the light around them faded, and a picture formed on the screen. It was much bigger than life. It showed men riding funny machines with 2 wheels along narrow dirt trails.
Oh, this is a preview, Kim said. Ignore it.
Then one of the wheeled machines was zooming right at them, filling the screen, roaring with sound. Chlorine cowered down, but it disappeared. It was, as Kim had said, just a picture. A moving picture. An illusion. She held Nimby's hand. He seemed to be fascinated by the effect, watching the machines zoom across dirt and sail into the air as they rode over hills. Probably he liked the feeling of magic, though Doug and Kim assured them that there was none. Well, maybe there is, in a sense, Doug said. They take shots over and over and over to get them right, and they have equipment hidden beyond camera range, so as to catch flying men before they crash into the ground. But it's mostly fakery. Real folk can't ride cycles that way, and live. Nimby glanced at him. Chlorine wondered what he was thinking of. She hoped it wasn't of riding, zooming, loud machines. There were other frightening, odd, or incomprehensible preview pictures. One featured a villain hauling the hero high with a pulley so that he dangled over a cauldron of acid. Nimby seemed fascinated by this too. That's a geared block and tackle, Doug said helpfully. It multiplies the pull. See, the villain can work it with one hand, lifting the hero's whole weight. Leverage is great stuff. Nimby nodded, making a mental note. Chlorine thought it was the physics rather than the story that intrigued him, but she wasn't sure. Nimby was interested in everything, and he had an inhuman capacity for assimilating new information. Then print appeared on the screen.
Now the movie is starting, Kim said. There are the credits.
Then the screen was filled with storm and rain as a couple rode in their wheeled box, their car, through evidently unfamiliar terrain. They had to take shelter in a private mansion run by a Dr. Sam Sausage. After that, things became more conventional, and Chlorine began to enjoy the story. Others in the theater talked to the screen and helped things happen in response to their urgings. It surely would have been a lesser story if they had not been acting to enhance it. Chlorine liked their attitude. She made a mental note to try one of the dance steps it so carefully diagrammed. It was just a jump to the left, and other stylized motions, such as placing the hands on the hips. Very nice. She was glad they had seen this. When the movie ended, they made their way back outside, where the day was unconscionably bright and warm. They got to the car, which was hot, but then it cooled. It rolled back toward the house, somewhat unsteadily. Had it lost the way? Chlorine had understood that Doug was in some way guiding it, as one would a steed. She glanced at him, and was amazed. Doug was not guiding it. Nimby was. Nimby was sitting in the driver's seat, with his hands on the steering wheel. Doug was giving instructions from the other seat. Red light ahead. Depress brake pedal. Stop. Green light. Depress accelerator pedal. The car leaped ahead, but NIMBY did seem to have it under control, and soon the ride steadied. He turned the wheel when Doug said, and the car turned at the same time. In due course, they reached the house. Chlorine realized that she should not have been surprised. His powers of magic were greatly diminished, but NIMBY had enormous powers of comprehension, and he was here to learn about Mundania. So he was learning to travel the mundane way. He would be learning other things as they went, so as to understand the rules of this land. Back inside the house, they tackled the kitchen. Under Kim's guidance, Chlorine succeeded in opening and heating a can of beans and spreading jam on slices of bread. Kim did much of the rest, but it was a start. Mundanian ways were distinctly strange, but she was catching on to them. In the evening, Kim showed them what she called the TV. This was a box with a screen on front, and pictures formed on it, and sound came from it. It was like a very small movie. You can watch news, sports, sitcoms, anything you want, Doug explained. Or you can ignore it. Chlorine found herself feeling increasingly vague and awkward. When she tried to stand, she fell back into her chair, unbalanced. "Pia," Kim said, alarmed. "Are you all right?" "I don't know," Chlorine said. "I'm dizzy and I don't feel good." "The diabetes," Doug exclaimed. "We forgot about that. She has to take insulin." "That's right," Kim said. "She should have had her shot before she ate." "Can you handle it, Kim?" "I'm not sure. I know the principle, but I never saw her do it." "Then I'd better. I used to help her, way back when she first was diagnosed, and was learning the dosages and technique." He grabbed for Pia's purse and rummaged in it for something. Then he approached Chlorine. "Your body has a problem. A shot will take care of it. I'm going to have to get rather personal, but this is something you need to have, and to know how to do. Lift up your skirt." "Lift?" she asked vaguely. This was not the kind of thing a man often asked a woman to do in company. But NIMBY, who understood that she now had the same problem he had given her Xanth body, nodded. He knew she needed immediate help. Kim reached across and pulled Chlorine's skirt up high, revealing her panties. Both Doug and NIMBY saw, but neither freaked out. This was Mundania, Chlorine remembered, where things didn't work as they should. "Ed, you need to know this too," Doug said. "Her medicine is in this ampoule." He was doing something with a needle. "She takes it in the high thigh, where it doesn't ordinarily show. This much, injected this way." He brought the needle down. "Pia, don't move. I'm sorry I'll be clumsy, so there will be some pain, but it must be done. You must trust me." "I do," Chlorine said, because she knew of Doug by reputation during his visits to Xanth. He was sincere and competent. Kim caught hold of Chlorine, helping her to not move. "Like this," Doug said, and jabbed the needle into her flesh. Chlorine jumped and tried to get away, not in control of herself. But Kim held her down while Doug depressed the needle's plunger, and the fluid went in. He was right. It did hurt. Then he pulled the needle out. "Swab," he said. "We need a swab. Should have used it before, actually." Kim found something cool and damp, and dabbed the stuck place. The pain had been brief and not that bad. Chlorine just hadn't been ready for anything like this. She pulled down her skirt. "Thank you," she said, somewhat weakly. She knew the awkward process had been necessary. She had been feeling really odd. After that, they explained in detail what Pia needed, and when, and how. NIMBY was paying close attention, and Chlorine knew he understood. He would see that it was done. Already she was feeling better. The shot had indeed fixed her problem. It had also shown her how much she and NIMBY needed the guidance of the companions. Without them, this could have been quite serious. Things settled down and they watched the TV and talked. Mundania was almost becoming familiar. Then Doug and Kim got ready to depart, for their home was elsewhere. "Tomorrow we'll show you how to ride the motorcycle," Doug said from the car. NIMBY perked up. Kim laughed. "Yes, like the ones in the movie preview, only nobody in real life ever rides them like that." "Ed would have a fit if his lemon were treated that way," Doug said. He loves that machine beyond all else.
What? Beyond Pia? Chlorine asked.
Doug and Kim exchanged a glance. You might as well know, Doug said. Ed and Pia are not getting along well. So yes, he may value the lemon beyond her.
Their visit to Xanth is to give them a break from routine life, so as maybe to get a new slant on their relationship, Kim said. We hope it works out.
They're good friends and good people, Doug said, not just wholly compatible.
Xanth has a way of making things work out, Chlorine said, especially romantically. We know, Kim said. We hope it works on them.
Then Doug started the motor, and the Neptune moved out.
This has been a considerable day, Chlorine said when they were alone. Mundania isn't as backward as I expected, but on the whole I prefer Xanth. I mean, the other place.
Nimby nodded. But of course he wasn't here to enjoy Mundania, but to explore it.
You're in a mundane body, without magic, so you will need to sleep too. So let's get into bed.
They went upstairs and used the bathroom facilities. It was worse for Nimby than for Chlorine, because as a demon he had not had natural functions, and in man form he had simply used magic to abate those he didn't care for. Now he had no way to escape them. She had to help him with the details. Fortunately, as a demon, he also lacked a sense of privacy. She did not say so, but she rather liked having him dependent on her for help for a change. He would need help only once in anything, but there would be a number of things to learn. Then they got into bed.
How are you feeling?
She asked by way of invitation. Nimby shrugged. That left it up to her.
Well, I'm tired and overloaded by new experience, she said. But I've never made love without magic, and never in someone else's body,
and never to a mundane man.
That's 3-2 in favor of doing it now. So let's do it.
So they did it. It was surprisingly clumsy and somewhat messy, but Chlorine didn't mind. She had wondered whether things would be as good without magic, and now she knew. They were not. She wondered why mundanes even bothered to signal storks, but this also meant she would really appreciate it when they returned to Xanth. Now she had a basis for comparison.
Are you sorry?
She asked him as they relaxed for sleep. He squeezed her hand in negation. She appreciated that, too. For all its negatives, this experience was like a honeymoon. 4. Talents. Edsel woke in darkness. He had not availed himself of the privy section before, and now he needed to. Pia was sleeping beside him. She, being more sensible about such things, had no problem. What a delight she could be when she tried. But he knew she was serious. She still intended to divorce him when they returned to Mundania, and he would not be able to protest. So he had to hope that something happened in Xanth to make her change her mind. Because though his passion had faded somewhat in their years of marriage, he still did love her. She could be selfish and difficult and cutting, but she could also be wonderful. Tonight had been an example. She knew exactly how to please him, and she was matchless when she tried. He got up and crawled up the side of the nest to the ladder. He was clothed. They had dressed again, as neither one of them was quite used to the ways of Xanth, and wanted to be ready for surprises. He climbed down and walked toward the privy. This was just a pit covered by illusion, but it served well enough. He could see, as there was a faint glow from the ground, maybe of magical origin. He liked the ambient magic of Xanth. He emerged from the privy and paused. Had he heard something?
Edsel,
a voice called from the night.
Here,
he said, surprised.
Who are you?
Where are you?
I'm Brianna, here by the path. Come quickly.
He walked toward her. She was standing just beyond the path in the darkness. What's up? I thought you were with Justin.
I was, she said, but something came up. You must come right away.
What came up?
There is danger. You must leave this place now. Come with me.
Danger?
Yes, hurry.
This was confusing. I thought this place was enchanted to be safe.
Bad magic is coming, she said urgently. We must be well away before it gets here, at dawn. Far away. We must go.
Without Pia? Without Justin?
Justin is finding a safe place, she said. Get Pia.
He remained bothered. Are you sure? I mean, to sneak out in the night.
I am sure. Quickly, Etzel. We must go. Be very silent.
Okay. He returned to the nest. Pia, he whispered, touching her shoulder. She was hard to wake. It was her diabetes, he thought. When she went down, it was for the count, but he kept after her. Pia, wake up. We have to get out of here. She stirred.
Huh? Didn't I already take care of you?
This isn't sex. Wake up. We have to go.
You go. I'll stay.
She pulled the blanket over her head. It was a struggle, but he finally got through to her. She got herself together, grabbed her purse, and followed him out of the nest. They descended the ladder and walked across to where Brianna was waiting. What's this? Pia asked. We can't go outside the enchanted area.
We must, Brianna said. Danger. But...
She says it's coming here at dawn, Etzel said. Bad magic. We have to clear the area before it gets here. Pia evidently didn't have the mental coherence to argue. Then let's get to where I can finish sleeping.
This way,
Brianna said, turning to follow a small side path. Small glowing fungus growing along the sides marked it. They followed. Etzel didn't like this, but it was the job of the companions to keep the visitors safe, and he had to trust their judgment. They had been right about everything else. The path wound deviously through the night. Etzel had no idea where they were going. He wanted to ask, but didn't want to be too obvious about his ignorance. So he tried to lead into it by broaching a different subject. How did it work out with Justin?
Justin is finding a safe place, she said.
She had said that before. No, I mean last night. You know, holding hands.
We do hold hands,
she agreed. Not this way. Petting.
We pet pets, the girl said. They are nice.
Something was wrong. Does this make sense to you? He asked Pia.
No, I don't think this is Brianna.
Uh-oh. But he had to find out. Brianna, exactly what is this danger that's coming? We have a right to know.
Danger, she said. Coming at dawn. You must get far away.
You said that before, Etzel said.
Before, she agreed. You must hurry before the danger comes at dawn.
Etzel stopped walking and Pia stopped with him. We're not going anywhere until you answer a question. How did you hold hands with Justin?
We do hold hands, she agreed. Hurry.
Show me how, he said.
This way, down this path. Hurry.
Hold my hand, he said. He reached out to catch her hand. His hand passed right through hers without touching. She was illusion.
It's a spook, Pia said. We've been tricked.
For sure, he agreed. And you know, she never said for sure. She doesn't know about the hand-holding. She's just a programmed image responding to verbal cues. I was a fool not to catch on sooner. This was Pia's chance to say something suitably cutting, but she passed it up.
Let's get the bleep back to the safe area.
He noted with bemusement that she couldn't say a bad word in the presence of even a fake underage person. That adult conspiracy was literal-minded. They turned back, but the path was gone. The lights had blinked out. But it was more than that. There was nothing but a thick tangle of briars there. I think I've heard of this, Etzel said. It's a one-way path. See, it's still there ahead of us.
So's the spook, she said nervously.
Etzel thought as rapidly and well as he could, considering that his mind felt numbed. It's a programmed spook, an image with a few sentences keyed by our statements. We can't go back. Maybe we should go forward. You know, pretend to be still taken in, so the spook won't suspect, until we have a chance to get away.
Do it,
she agreed. They faced the spook. Sorry about the delay, Etzel said. Let's go where we're going.
We must go quickly, the spook agreed, before the danger comes at dawn.
Yes, we must go, he said. He took Pia's hand, not for any naughty purpose, but because he knew how frightened she had to be, and wanted to reassure her. "The real Brianna and Justin will discover we're gone and come after us," he whispered. "We just have to play along until then." "Yes," she agreed, terrified. They followed the spook down the glowing path. Etzel turned his head to peek behind them and saw that the path was disappearing as they went. One way indeed. This was an aspect of magic he would have preferred not to encounter. Even if they got free of the spook, how could they ever make their way back through that jungle? They were no longer protected from dragons or tangle trees. The path continued interminably. Now Etzel had time to consider other aspects. Why had this trap been set for them? Whoever had set it up had known something about them. Their names, that they were visitors who could be fooled. The names of their companions, from whom they were to be separated. But who could be behind this? Or what? The path continued, and so did the spook. All they could do was follow. But Etzel kept his eyes open, watching for any escape, or even a hint of what they were caught in. On and on. Etzel's legs were getting tired, and Pia was stumbling against him. The spook had been right about wherever it was they were going being far away. The sky began to lighten. Dawn was coming. That was a relief. At least they would be able to see something other than the glowing path. But that would not necessarily be good news. It might merely clarify how bad the trouble was. "What's that?" Pia asked, squeezing his hand almost painfully tight. Etzel looked. A jagged line was forming in the sky. It widened and lengthened, and light spilled out. One end was overhead. The other was touching the horizon. "The crack of dawn!" he exclaimed, catching on. At that, the crack wedged all the way open, and light poured across the land. The spook faded out. The path also faded. They were left standing on a brushy plain. Ahead of them was a dark castle. "I think that's where we are headed," Etzel said. Pia shuddered. "I don't want to go there." Etzel looked around. "I see a stream and a boat. I think we had better borrow that boat and get away from here." "Yes." They tramped through the brush to the boat. It was tied to a deserted cabin. "We must mark this place," Etzel said, "so we know where to return the boat." He didn't want to think of himself as a thief. He untied the boat and held it steady while Pia got in. There were 2 paddles lying along its bottom. They took these and moved into the stream. Fortunately, the current was away from the castle. The stream carried them along. They needed the paddles only to steer the boat. Soon it debouched into a lake. The castle seemed to be on the edge of the lake, so they paddled the other way. "There's an island," Pia said, pointing. "Maybe that's the best place to hide," he said, "until Justin and Brianna come looking for us." "Yes." She seemed a trifle encouraged. They paddled toward the island. "Maybe the real deadline the spook had was to get us to that castle before the crack of dawn," he said. End of side 2. Crack of dawn, he said. End of side 2. Crack of dawn, he said. End of side 2. Crack of dawn, he said. End of side 2. Crack of dawn, he said. End of side 2.